I am a maker of escape rooms, and actually I hope no one here is claustrophobic, because I just locked all the doors and very slowly all the oxygen in this room is being pumped out. So we have now exactly 8 minutes to reach the moral of my story. And if you want, there's a clock right over there. 2 years ago, together with 2 friends of mine, we started one of the first escape rooms in the Netherlands, called Sherlocked. And at the time, there were only 3 other escape rooms, and we weren't sure if it would be a success or not, and we didn't mind because we liked the idea so much. We couldn't be bothered if it was a failure. We just wanted to do it. And so we launched it in this beautiful building, and we created our own secret society. And then this happened. We were invited to present the principle of an escape room live on television at the Doorn. And we locked up this very charming, very excited Belgian TV presenter in a custom mini escape room that we'd made just in a few days for this show. And she had such a joyful time breaking free from this box that 1.2 million people in the Netherlands were sparked to want to do this as well. And within 4 months, 200 new escape rooms had arrived in the Netherlands. Yeah. 2 years later, we're now at 450 and counting. Every week there's 2 or 3 still sparking up on the scene. And so it begs the question, why do so many people pay us to lock them up? And the answer, I think, is twofold. One is the more obvious one, is that people desire adventure. They desire the kinds of adventure they know mostly from movies. But the second one is slightly more niche, and it's the one I want to talk to you a little bit more about based on the personal experience I had, and it is the power of someone wanting to break free. Wanting to break free when you are locked up. Because when I was 15, I felt very locked up myself. High school, actually, was my first escape room. I know not everyone felt that way at school, and I was really happy for them, but for me, it felt like being locked in a system that was designed over a century ago by people who didn't know me, and perhaps you can relate this feeling of being caught in a system that was designed with the best intentions at heart, but not with you and your creative spirit in mind. I, for one, for instance, was a very energetic child, and I loved staying up late. I was a bit of a night owl. But there I was, trapped in this schedule that required me to wake up early, go to school every day after day after day, and sit still, listen, absorb, and repeat the things that I did not choose to learn. And actually, it wasn't the subjects or the teachers. Actually, I went to school here in Haarlem at the Eerste Christelijk Lyceum, and the teachers were quite great, actually. It was mostly just the fact that I had to be there and that I didn't have any choice or any say in the matter that constricted me so much. And I remember this feeling of confinement growing so much that at some point I would actually rather be at home and sick than healthily at school. And then one day, this was in September 2002, I went home utterly drained. And I told my mother, and I remember this very clearly, I told her, I feel like they're trying to kill me. And my parents, they took this slightly dramatic statement very seriously. And together we decided to devise an escape plan. And so they asked a doctor to examine my white blood cell count over the course of a month. And sure enough, you could see that every time the weekend would end and school would begin, my resistance would plummet. And so you could say that school was actually making me sick. And with this report, we took it to the truancy officer, which is the person in charge of making sure that all children, according to the law, went to school every day. And it was apparently enough to convince her and the school representatives, to whom I, because of this, owe my eternal gratitude. It was enough to convince them to exempt me from this law, the leerplicht. And so from that moment on, I was no longer required to be at school. I could stay at home. I was, in principle, free to smoke weed all day. Thankfully, that was not quite my thing. And in fact, instead of stopping studying, I started studying more because I was actually a very curious child. I just liked to decide to do it at my own pace, in my own way. And I was very interested in filmmaking, for instance, at the time, and so I joined a full-time education, pre-education for the Film Academy in Amsterdam, which was quite an adventure of its own, going to Amsterdam, I was 14, 15-year-old child, and studying among these 25, 30-year-old would-be directors. And yes, it was quite scary, but it was also an adventure. And also, not all the classes were as interesting as the others. I mean, some were quite boring, just like in high school, but at least it was my choice, and therefore it was my responsibility. And that made, to me, all the difference. Now, the intention of this experiment for my high school was that I would have a year of fun, restore my health, and after that year, get back in line and do that year again, now with better energy. But the interesting thing was that I was so energized by this position, this freedom that I'd been given, that I wanted to keep up. I wanted to actually keep studying. And so I was learning in the train to Amsterdam and back and in cafes, really driven to make this work. And it wasn't just me, it was also the teachers at my school who were quite fascinated with this question, how much freedom and responsibility can you give a child if they ask for it? And so with a lot of goodwill and an effort, I made it that year without having to do it over, as well as at the pre-Film Academy school. And the same happened the next year and the next. And then in 2006, again with a lot of goodwill and help from my teachers, I finished high school in time and with my soul or my spirit not just intact, but beaming. And so for me, this was the first time I experienced something that now with Sherlocked, in a small way, I see every day, and it's this power of somebody breaking themselves free and the power of them having an adventure of their own. I really got a lot of hope from that, and some rejuvenated faith in the world, because I had this experience that with help of other people, I could somewhat change my circumstances. And of course, not everyone can have a doctor declare them unfit for school. But I do believe that everyone is able to and deserves to find their own way. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to ask for and accept the help of others, because, for instance, if my mother had not taken my predicament as seriously as she had, I would probably not have had this experience. I would have probably become quite depressed and probably would have not had the energy or the optimism required to start a company. And I most definitely wouldn't be standing here today. And so I believe that if we can help each other, and especially children, if we can help each other have this experience of freeing yourself early in life, we will get a world of people who are more creative, more driven, and more empowered to change the world as they see fit. And so let us please, regardless of convention, and sometimes regardless of law, if you see someone struggling within a system, help them free themselves. You can unlock the doors now.